Teezo. Bam! Alright, I got the pajamas. We also have the one-piece set. Damn, I got a fat ass. I didn't know whether or not you'd like One Piece or Dragon Ball Z, so I just went with what I like, Dragon Ball Z. And they're here in spirit. So, yeah, let's just get into it. Teezo Touchdown is an artist who is based out of Texas, whose music I didn't really know of until about 2 or 3 months ago when I heard a song about a fan. I'm not kidding. They have a song about a fan. So, with that being said, I was kind of indifferent on this release just because I didn't know whether or not I should be excited for it. But he did release, in fact, his first debut album. And the title of it is How Do You Sleep at Night? And I don't know. My bed kind of sucks. I'm not going to lie. You can see it. This is shitty all the time back here, by the way, guys. This is always a shitty bed, all right? I don't know. I make it for the videos, but this shit is always uncomfortable, all right? I'm working to get there, all right, to get a better bed. But back to the music. I went to this album kind of, like I said, indifferent. I didn't know what to expect just because Modern Jam from Travis Scott's Utopia was, very upbeat. And the tracks I heard leading up to this album was 5 O'Clock and Familiarity, right? One of which, ended up being on the album. The other one did not, which I'm kind of sad about. But, I didn't know what to expect. So the album releases, and I'll walk you through my mind frame here because I was leaving work, all right, and the album had popped up on my feed because I was keeping track of the album. I wasn't just, oh, he dropped an album, let me go check it out real quick. I was anticipating it, all right? So I get off of work, and, I get home, de-stress, everything, and I put the album on. And I didn't expect what I got. But I'll be damned if I didn't believe it was one of the best albums of 2023. Or maybe in the past 4 years. I'll be honest. This album is like, it's almost refreshing. That's probably the best word I can put for it, is just refreshing. This is my cat bucket. But this album serves a really good, kind of like a reset or like a palate cleanser for music. Especially because if you're like me who, likes to consume music a lot, and you kind of get used to hearing the same thing over and over again, then you're going to, sort of put yourself in a position where you want to listen to music and not be so much afraid of what you're going to listen to. But with, Teezo Touchdown, it became apparent very clearly that he does what he wants. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He does what he wants, period. And I can really respect that as an artist and more so as a consumer of music because going into it, I was like, well, I don't know. But leaving it, I'm just like I don't know. I can't listen to other things right now. Like I've literally just been singing You Thought, or I've been singing Too Easy, which a lot of people seem to don't like. I don't know what the problem is, but that song is like hard. All right. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go ahead and talk about the actual album from start to finish. All right. So the first track, Okay, starts off with him kind of putting everything on the table. You weren't there. Don't fuck with me, right? And for the majority of this album, he actually doesn't cuss a lot, which I respect a lot too. That's actually one of the things that I try to do in my own music. And of course, I'm reading the track list here because it is, almost like a week old by this point, but I haven't gotten used to it, so bear with me. But Okay starts off the album, and we go into the one of the singles of the album, You Thought. Now, You Thought is a really good song. It encapsulates sort of like this duality, like dual meaning of the phrase You Thought, because it is a very braggadocious record at the beginning, and it transfers into sort of a somber camaraderie between male and female, in which they basically question whether or not they were better than the situation that they're putting themselves in, which I can really respect. And I think that's an awesome way to kind of flip the idea of You Thought on its head. And from there, we go to which is actually one of my favorite tracks off of the album because it does a really good job of kind of like being very smooth while also, just kind of embracing how corny it can be to say things like this to a woman. Now, I won't lie, there are parts of this album where I feel like, maybe the track is too long, or maybe it overstays its welcome, or it's too short. That's like my only critique of this album when it comes to like the first thing that pops in my head. Because I'm not the nitpicking type of guy. Like I just really like music, right? But some of these tracks are very long. Some of these are very short. And I'll get into the ones that I feel like should have been longer, or the ones that I would have liked to hear longer or more of. But for now, the songs that I have named are actually the songs that are, have a good, decent runtime, and they don't overstay their welcome at all. So on is sort of him, and insinuating that he's going to have sex with a woman, and he's going to reassure her of her value, basically, that even though I have done this with other women, they ain't shit like you. You feel me? So that I fuck with that. The next song, Sweet, it's one of the few songs that I did wish there was more of, but it is 2 minutes. It actually is a pretty pretty song. It's like very kind of back and forth, the same way that You Thought was, but I feel like the features on this album also do a good job. I'm getting ahead of myself on that just because I wanted to keep that for later, but the features do a really good job at kind of like playing with Teezo's vocals, and almost empowering them. They're not trying to take over what he's doing or do their own thing to make it feel like they're like the spotlight necessarily, but it helps the song. It's good song crafting. But from Sweet we go to Impossible. Now, Impossible is a very touching song. It's very personal, but not in the sense that it's Teezo referring to himself, but Teezo referring to situations that people may have gone through or that they have gone through, and it's dissuaded them from, doing something that they would now deem impossible, whether it was being a boxer, whether it was being and he goes through a lot of things like that, whether it was an artist, a lot of things that, relatable things, right? So for a person like myself who is an artist, it was very, very, I was on the verge of tears from hearing it. But I'm a real nigga, you know what I'm saying? Ain't no feelings, but it was a really good song. And one of my favorite Travis Scott songs is titled Impossible as well. So, like, if you're an artist out there and you're going to make a song called Impossible, you got some real fucking bangers you got to go against, all right? You got Teezo's, you have Travis Scott's, all right? If you make a song called Impossible, that shit's got to be fire, bro, because they've been keeping that shit up. But, the next song that we have is Neighborhood, all right? And this is the one song where I feel like it was a good example of pacing in this album, where it is good, because Neighborhood, it tells the tale of, I would say 2 or maybe 3 people, separate situations. I haven't gone, that's the one track that I haven't actually gone back to much, just because on the first listen I kind of got, what he was saying, but I will go after this review. But he basically tells a story of this person who, was kind of cast from his family, and he wants to go see his daughter, and it's a very touching story. And the instrumentation, I haven't talked about that yet, but the instrumentation throughout this album, even though it is, it could be considered inconsistent, there is a charm to each track, right? There is something for everybody on this album, which I think is very enjoyable. And for someone who does enjoy a lot of music, like me, I was able to go through this album with my ADHD brain to kind of just be like, oh, yes, I'm here now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll just go into this different space or this different realm, which is like, I prefer that in music, rather than just being kind of stale, kind of the same the entire time. But from Mood Swings, or from Neighborhood, we go into Mood Swings, which is a track that wasn't my favorite. It's another one of those where it has like a smooth ballad. It's not doing too much, but outside of that, it was one of those where I was like, especially towards the outro. The outro was one of my favorite parts. It was one of those where I could just kind of listen to it and understand it and kind of go on from there. But the next song is one of my favorite songs from it, and also one of my least favorite songs from it, from the album, I should say. It's Too Easy. Now, my issues with Too Easy aren't the first part of the song that a lot of people seem to dislike. I actually like the first part of Too Easy a lot, simply because it's just a very, like, I can imagine just like a bunch of like white college kids just coming out and be like, too easy, and just like going crazy, right? And that's kind of how I like the song. It's just like a very like pumped up song. But then the second half comes in, and it's just this beautiful fucking song where it's, him singing about, wanting to make it easier for a woman to leave him, or, kind of questioning that they're not serious or if they're serious enough. And that part of the song for me is like a 10 out of 10. That specific portion of the song. But the problem is that it's a 2 minute and 54-second record. In that song, in that span of time, the first half takes up more than what the second half does. And even though the first half is obviously disproportionate to the second half, it does feel like it would have been better if it were two separate songs. Or maybe the second half was longer. And I understand, things, this album sort of teaches you that things being, short and sweet is kind of what it's going for. But the second half of Too Easy is just so goddamn gorgeous that it's hard not to get past the fact that I can't just have more of it. Like, I might go later on FL and just kind of like loop that bitch myself and just listen to it. Because it really just is that type of song for me where it's just like, I've just been singing the entire time at work and people are just like, what is this song? I was like, oh, it is. But that song is probably my favorite off of the album so far. And from there, we go to Familiarity, which is a coming of age song. It's one of the, if you're familiar with Teezo at all, you've probably heard the song because it is a single leading up to the album. So I'm not going to delve too much into it, but I really enjoyed the song. This is what made me want to get into his music outside of the Travis Scott song, simply because it was just something like kind of like abstract a little bit, and not many people are willing to delve into their personal lives as he did on that song. So that's kind of where I went from there. I Don't Think You See Me is a shorter track at 1 minute 45 seconds. It's one of the few tracks where I felt like the same with Too Easy, how it kind of does a lot, but it's so short that I kind of wish it was just longer. Daddy Mama Drama is it's something that I can personally relate to just because I had a lot of experiences like that growing up. And of course, he's not very direct in a lot of this music. He's not saying everything explicitly. So a lot of it you kind of have to read between the lines on, which I can appreciate. It's a fine line between subtlety and just being vague. And I think he does a lot of subtle things in his music, which I can really appreciate. And then we go from Daddy Mama Drama to New Ray, which leads into Stranger, which leads into The Original Was Better. And the reason why I'm going through these tracks is because New Ray is, again, a 1 minute 47 second song, which I believe could have been a little bit longer. It seems like a lot of the ideas on this album, if he felt the need to push the song, he would, especially for a song like right? For example, was just one package song. There was no beat change. There was, nothing too fancy, right? But for songs like maybe Too Easy, the second half of Too Easy, or, New Nay, I said New Ray, I'm dyslexic, New Nay, it feels like he, sort of found the idea for the song and was, kind of confident that, half of the sections of the song, or if it was like 1 minute 50 seconds, wasn't long enough for it to be considered a song. And while I do agree, because I make a lot of short songs myself, especially with like dual meanings like that, it makes me feel like some of these could have been either tied together to make them a little bit more lengthier, or at least, kind of push it just a little bit more. I'm not asking for like, Kanye West power levels of, instrumentation or like grandiose, but just a little bit more to kind of like, maybe a spoken word. I feel like that maybe this album needed something like that in the cuts. I feel like maybe a spoken word here, or maybe just like an excerpt or something like that would have been really good. Just because this album does a lot of, exploring emotions, exploring ideas, and, at the end of the day, I can appreciate it for what it is. I think it's a really, really good album. But I'm not going to finish here. I do want to talk about Stranger and The Original Was Better, because Stranger, while it's not my favorite track, still does a lot to accomplish what it does. And I'm not going to harbor on it for too long, because it is one of the tracks where I listened to it once and I was like, all right, I get it. But The Original Was Better, I actually really enjoyed. But, it reminds me a lot of what Kanye did with I Miss the Old Kanye, where, he's naming a lot of ideas and, like questioning who the fuck is directing all this shit, right? He's basically just kind of like closing the album out with sort of a like, he's not lashing, but he's more of like a kind of a kid just questioning everything, right? And I can totally get behind that, because that is something that is a lot of people are afraid to do, especially in music. A lot of artists who are, considered established and things like that, they want to keep being established, right? Their vulnerability is, it risks their engagement, right? But Teezo on this album seems to have done the exact opposite and embraced everything that he is insecure about or he questions in his waking life and puts it on tracks. Now, whether or not they fully connect or not is dependent on how you feel about the songs, but I overall feel this album was a really, really good album. I think a lot of the album is fleshed out. I think there are specific tracks that, even though I wish there was more of, they went there. They went those places, and I can appreciate that they went those places. And overall, I mean, I'm not gonna say I'd give it like a rating per se. I know people, Fantano or like Chauncey maybe, like they want to give their ratings on it, but I think it's just a really phenomenal album. I don't think there's a way you could like valid like or I don't know how to put it, man. It's just a really good album. Like if you listen through it all the way and kind of step back out into like the real world, you will feel like a change. Like you'll feel like, damn, I feel a little bit different about things right now, and it's kind of like a sobering moment, just because you're experiencing so many emotions at once. But I mean, overall, man, congratulations. I mean, this is a phenomenal record. I will say, 5 O'Clock not being on the album is it's a heartbreaker, man. 5 O'Clock has this one part which I think is, I don't know how else to say it. I've been trying to come up with a word to not say this word, but there's a very cute part of 5 O'Clock where he's like, "Oh B, oh bye, it's a traffic jam," and I don't know. I just really fuck with that part. I wish it was on the album, but I understand why. Just because maybe it was like a throwaway, or is one of those those cuts where like a video would probably be more necessary for it. But overall, I think the album is like phenomenal, and I think the best part of the album, leaving it, is that it shows that other artists are not, or it challenges other artists. I will say that this album doesn't go outside of its own lane, but you can sort of tell with an album like this, especially with how kind of expansive his tastes are. Teezo really, really fucks with music. Like, you can tell he kind of just really likes the idea of just being able to do shit, right? And I encourage more artists to go down this path, because without, an album like this, I probably would still just be listening to the same shit that I listen to, right? And this is like I listen to this and I'm like, damn, I can't really listen to the other albums of this year, because like it's just not comparable. It's like an actual like project that I feel like complete after listening to. So hope you guys enjoyed this review. I know I didn't rate it. If I did, it would be like a 9 out of 10. Longer songs, please. But yeah, that's it, man. Hope you guys enjoyed.